Hey everybody, it's Nathaniel Avila reporting from Dallas County. Who am I here with today?
Hi, it's Tani.
Hello. How are you doing today?
Good, good.
How was your cruise?
It was good. It was good. Very relaxing. I wish I was still on it.
Okay. You don't get seasick?
No.
Okay. So, what are we talking about today?
I believe we're talking about a suicide forest in Japan.
That's right. That's what we're doing. So let's get started. Okay, so Japan, right? With its rising suicide rate, it has become one of the world's largest consumers of suicide prevention measures. So it has seen a great significant increase in number of suicides in the past 2 decades and is now considered one of the most suicide-prone societies in the world. Now, the general consensus on why the suicide rate was risen so dramatically in Japan seems to be a mix of factors such as traditional values, stress from modernization, and an increasingly unforgiving social environment. So, this is where our topic comes in, which is one particular type of suicide known as forest suicide, and it is particularly notable in Japan. Now, forest suicide is a phenomenon in which a person will commit suicide in a secluded, natural area. It's oftentimes a forest, most likely originating in the 1990s. Now, suicides of this fashion have been becoming increasingly common in the past few decades, especially among young people. Now, it is believed that the increase in forest suicides is a result of the Japanese culture's lack of emphasis on mental health and lack of support for those who need it. So, what do you think?
I mean, to an extent, I'm surprised we're not actually on the top ourselves, because we don't like talking about our mental illnesses either.
Oh no. So yeah. So, firstly, we must discuss the reason for suicides. Like, now, theories abound about the reasons why certain individuals commit for a suicide. Now, one theory suggests that social familial pressure to conform to certain expectations may lead to feelings of helplessness and emotional despair in a society where academic success, financial stability, social acceptance are paramount. So, yeah, let me brighten up my screen so I can see you. There you are. So, in a society where, so all that is a factor. So this inability to achieve one's desired outcome may result in the decision to take one's own life rather than struggle with the pain of failure and disappointment. Now, another theory cites the traditional Eastern values that promote the idea of living life in a way that is seen as honorable and contributing to society is of utmost importance. This can be seen in the act of forced suicide, whereby taking one's own life in a secluded area. The individual is seen as removing oneself from society in order to avoid any further dishonorable or supposedly shameful behavior that would bring disgrace to the family. Now, this concept of shame and the reputational damage that could result from actions deemed to be dishonorable is a core value within the traditional Eastern culture, and has been a living force behind certain acts of forced suicide in Japan. So, what do you think about that? About those two theories about why this is such a widespread thing in Japan?
I mean, it's not really a surprise. The Japanese folks are a very strong ego society that has to live in one way or another, and everyone must live in that same way, or it's looked down upon.
Yeah, I don't think I could live in Japan for very long. because I don't think I can help with the culture. Because I know their culture is like you wake up, you go to work, you go back home, and then you wake up, you go to sleep, and then you do the same thing over and over and over again. I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's okay for certain things to be done in certain ways, but most of the time, hey, you go to work, you be a productive part of society, don't do anything that would be frowned upon.
Like what? What's frowned upon?
Acting like an American.
Okay. Oh no, here comes my cat. Alright, so another factor cited as a contributing factor to forced suicide is the increased mental health stigma in Japan. Now, attitudes and behavior towards mental health, particularly among youth, are socially accepted in most developed societies, and there is an overall sense of understanding and an openness to discuss and seek help. In Japan, however, the degree of stigma in any form of mental health assistance is not seen as desirable or socially acceptable, instead of being seen as a sign of individual weakness. Now, this stigma may impact the decision of an individual to enter into regular therapy every so often, instead for suicide. So it is crucial to understand the impact of forced suicide in the Japanese society and to recognize the importance of suicide prevention efforts in this area. Now, forced suicide has had a negative effect on families and communities of those who have committed suicide in forests. Now, there is a sense of confusion and disbelief surrounding this type of death. Now, this confusion and despair is often compounded by a lack of understanding from friends and family members who are unaware of feelings of despair that might lead to such an act. And in addition, the death of a family member or friend who has committed suicide in a forest can lead to feelings of guilt and shame, especially if it is seen as dishonorable or shameful act. This can lead to a strong sense of grief and feeling of helplessness amongst other family members and those in the community. So what do you think about that?
I mean, it's not wrong. It feels like you're taking away something that was part of society, your best friend, acquaintance.
Very interesting indeed. Now, the issue of the forced suicide has negatively impacted the Japanese economy in numerous ways. Now, the costs associated with a suicide incident, such as that of a forced suicide, are often high and prompt a necessary response from local government. Moreover, the mental health burden that comes from dealing with the suicide of an individual is staggering, with estimates suggesting that in 2017, suicide counted for more than 1.3% of Japan's total GDP, making it the fourth pervasive economic burden for the country. So, that's something. So, there is an urgent need for effective preventative measures to be taken in order to reduce the incidence of forced suicide in Japan, and the focus should be particularly on the mental health of young people, as previous research has shown that mental health problems are commonly experienced by those who commit forced suicide. Therefore, measures should be put in place to better tackle mental health issues in Japanese society, as well as promoting open and dishonest conversation about mental health. Now, this could include greater support for mental health resources and services within communities, along with the provision of mental health education and training to teachers, health professionals, and police officers. Do you agree with that?
I mean, to the most part, yeah.
Right, just the most part. What about the other? What about the other part?
I mean, suicide is still not the answer in most cases.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Japan should probably remove that stigma of mental health within their community.
I mean, they should, but the proud, it's a history thing. It's a very proud thing, and it doesn't help that in their past, it was actually, to an extent, depending on where you sat in stature, that if you did commit suicide in a specific way, it was actually still considered honorable.
That is true. In Japanese history, the suicide, like taking your own life, was considered to be the warrior's death or the honorable death to do, and that was given to like people who, like samurai who, I guess they messed up or something, but given their past records of being contributive to their respective society, they were given the opportunity to die an honorable death, which is by suicide. So, is it kind of odd how that kind of happened?
I mean, to an extent, yes and no. I mean, it's history. It was meant as a way for you to, hate to be the cliche, but Japan's history and society is just similar to Klingons. To die in battle was a great honor. And so if you didn't die in battle but you lost the war, then you would commit suicide so it wasn't a pox on your house and everything.
Isn't that what like the Vikings believed too? Like, if you die in battle, you'll go to Valhalla, which is their version of heaven.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Vikings do.
Yeah.
But the Vikings also actually enjoyed mental health and cleaning themselves. That's why the Vikings were slowly put out, because other societies didn't like their women going after their men because they groomed themselves.
You hear that, guys? Make sure to have good hygiene. So, let's get into the nitty-gritty about what we're really talking about today, which is the suicide forest itself, which is a mysterious forest in Japan, and for centuries the suicide forest has been feared and talked about in myth and legend. Now, it has been controversial, misunderstood, and dreaded, and it has also been the source of fascination and myth. It has been the subject of books, movies, and a whole lot more. So today we will be devoted to unraveling the truth behind the mysterious suicide forest. Ooh.
Ooh.
Okay. So, the suicide forest is a 12.4 square mile forest located in the northwest base of Mount Fuji in Japan, and has been shrouded in mystery and myth since ancient times. Now, there are legends of people going in and never coming out. For centuries, it has been one of Japan's most feared and talked about places. Now, in modern history, the suicide forest dates back to the Meiji period, which is between 1868 and 1912. Now, during this period, the suicide forest was traditionally thought to be a place where demons and spirits dwelled, and it was also home to several cursed families. In the 1950s and 60s, the suicide forest became a popular tourist destination and seemingly beautiful place to visit. Would you ever visit such a place?
I would visit the outskirts, but not go into the forest.
You would just go to the parking lot and just be like, "Wow, that's a forest," and then just leave.
Take some pictures, because I know they have signs. I'm pretty sure they have signs. Beware, this is the suicide forest. I believe in Japanese. So you can take pictures near the signs to say that you went there.
I mean, you can go inside. There's a path you can follow.
Yeah, let's not and test that theory. Let's not. I believe in the supernatural and other things when there is a high chance of most people going into said forest and never coming back. Let's not test that theory, because even though I'm not Japanese oriented, it still might prey on foreigners.
Okay.
Let's not.
Yeah. So the dark side of the suicide forest became more prominent in the 1970s, when news reports of people taking their own lives in the forest began to surface. Now, the oft-repeated legend the forest spirit inhabited past began to take on a very real and morbid meaning. people started to think of the suicide forest as a place where a person can come to end their life in isolation. Now, the earliest documented instance of a suicide in the suicide forest dates all the way back to the 1950s. However, it wasn't until the 1970s that this began to become a regular occurrence in the forest. Now, this increase in suicides was due in part to Seiichi Matsumoto's popular novel, The Black Sea of Trees, which followed a young couple who ventured into the forest to end their lives. So, there's that. Now, the number of suicides began to increase rapidly in the 1980s when an estimated 100 people annually lost their lives within its boundaries, and by the late 1990s, this number more than doubled. In 2010, the number of death in the forest has risen to 247, with around 30 people successfully being rescued. So what do you think about that, this increasing number of suicides is happening in the forest?
I mean, when your society says that you have to be productive and you can't, of course you end up going and trying to find another means to be productive by not being alive.
Mm-hmm. Now, like the reasons that people commit suicide in the suicide forest were poverty and despair, and Japan experienced an economic downturn in the late 90s, and this added the rising desperation of those in the country, which probably could explain why there's like a major spike within this period. So, the legends of the suicide forest have been around for centuries. And have only grown in intensity through the years. Now, it is said that if you enter the forest, you will never come out. It is believed that the spirits of those who have taken their lives in this forest will capture any who come and consume their life force, leaving them unable to leave. Ooh, isn't that scary? Yeah?
That's why you don't test no theories.
Okay.
Although, if I remember in these new modern times, during the day, cops and stuff go into the forest and find said bodies of those who have committed suicide and take them home in some instances.
Why would they do that? That doesn't sound very cool.
Well, again, they're very proud people. You just don't leave them there to swing or other ways that they've committed suicide. So they go in and check, because it's one of those, they know that's what happens, and they're just, records and consensus and stuff. Missing people, let's see if they're missing from actual missing or missing from suicide.
So let's talk about the deadly Yurei. So, which is a phantom that will appear at night and take the souls of those sleeping within the forest. Now, this phantom is said to be an old woman who committed suicide in the forest years ago, and she is she will now take the souls of those who are in the forest to take her revenge. Now, and there are also the wind voices. Now, it is believed that if you stay in the forest long enough, you will be able to hear the whispers of the dead in the wind. These are said to be spirits of those who have taken their lives in the forest, and they will call out and beckon those in the forest to join them. So what do you think about all that? Is there like a phantom? Is there like wind voices or and stuff?
Superstition says yes.
Okay. So, now the suicide in the suicide forest has actually decreased considerably in recent years. Now, this is due in part to the efforts of the Japanese government, which has placed highly visible signs throughout the forest reading, "Your life is a precious gift from your parents," and has instituted patrols to dissuade potential suicides. Now, currently, yeah? What was that?
I said, told ya.
Okay. Now, currently, the Japanese National Police Agency does not release the exact numbers of people who take their lives in the forest each year. but it is estimated to be around 30 people a year. There has been a marked decrease in suicides in recent years, most likely as a result of awareness campaigns and suicide prevention efforts. Despite this, the suicide forest still holds a dark and mysterious reputation, and people are still wary of entering the forest, and it is still thought of as a place of despair and death. Now, the suicide forest is a forest full of mystery and legend, and there are still many unanswered questions. Now, is the forest truly cursed, or is it simply a place where people choose their own lives? What do you think?
Both.
Both, okay. And what are the tales of the phantom and the whispering spirits? Are they around? You already said yes. So, now it is a place with undeniable pull to those in despair, and it is also a place of great mystery and beauty. Whatever the truth may be, it is clear that the suicide forest has had a powerful influence on Japanese culture, and it won't be forgotten anytime soon. Now, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything about the suicide forest. So, what do you think about it? What's your overall thing?
To be honest, I mean, superstition and just not giving people the help that they need or listening to what they're saying is a big factor of why it's been slightly increased. So people should just be aware. I think just for any of those out there thinking that they might need some help, I believe it dial pounds 988 for this suicide help. I believe it's 988.
That sounds about right. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been Nathaniel Avila.
And I've been Hanyu.
And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to A Vision Podcast, home of wacky talkies, The Kingdom, Evil Exists, and many more.